Hey, well, friends, it's really great that you agreed to come in and talk for a little bit. And what I want to do is to raise the question that worries me most with these efforts to talk about a Christian theology that really can have traction in today's world. And somehow I think the problem of theology in the church can be solved. But I worry a lot about a Christianity that really can have traction in the world. I know right-wing Christianity can have traction. It's done a really good job. But can progressive Christians who have some sort of theological content not identical to a contemporary political school, can they have traction?
Can you unpack the word traction for me?
Yeah, it's a racing metaphor.
Or is that sort of the question?
Yeah, traction is when you take the power from your motor and you get it through the wheels onto the pavement so you drive the car through a corner. And no traction is when you're on ice and you just slide and you're not making any difference. You and the road aren't really in contact, and you're just sliding over this layer of black ice. And I wonder whether progressive Christianity has that kind of traction, has real traction in society. And I'm tempted to ask Steve, is there something you've seen as you've talked with people in DC that raises this problem of whether progressive Christianity is really doing anything in decision making? There may not.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not even sure that conservative Christianity has the power that you mentioned. I mean, I think it had a certain amount of power in convincing people that what they already wanted to do was sort of okay. I mean, that's what it. But I don't know what kind of traction that is. I mean, it's a certain kind of ideological traction, I guess you could say. But was it really? How much of a difference was it really making? I mean, I suppose you could say that something like abortion, and the fact that the House of Representatives just now passed a prohibition on abortion funding that's even deeper than what was the case with the Hyde Amendment. That just happened yesterday, or 2 days ago, and. The fact that that occurred has something to do with religious passions. However, to what extent those are theologically driven as opposed to driven by other social factors like concerns about the autonomy of women versus things that secular people share, which are concerns about individual human rights. It seems to me that it's so easy to translate any of these debates into secular terms that the religion often looks as if it's providing rhetorical support for positions that people would take for other reasons.
Could we agree that even if there are social reasons for a policy, that as long as a robust theological argument is given, it would still count as an example of what I'm calling traction? I want to know if that lower hurdle can be met by progressive Christian thinkers, or do we even fail the lower bar that conservatives have done with gun control, with abortion, and some similar debates?
Well, yeah, I think and what started our version of this conversation was my perception of the silence of the church. I mean,
talk about that. And then let me ask Tripp and Laurent.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I think that it's the fact the conservatives at least are willing to take stands on these issues, which, again, whatever their causal efficacy is, I mean, that's one question. But at least they're talking about it, and at least their voices are recognized, and whether one agrees with them or disagrees with them, you can't deny that they're visible. They have a certain kind of force rhetorically, as I was saying. But what really struck me was the lack of. And it's not any particular position that you think that progressives should be taking. It's the fact that no position is getting any traction in the media, in the press. I mean, they may be saying something in their sermons. I have to say that my own experience has been the sermons have been pretty mealy-mouthed too, actually. I mean, in the sense of...
that really hurts. Not changing Washington, not being covered in the Post are two things. But even the sermons themselves are mealy-mouthed. That really hurts.
Because, I do think it's... I've really been struck... we went into 2 wars with almost no comment in a number of progressive churches, liberal churches that I attended. Because it was almost as if, you could talk about war and peace issues in church until the U.S. was attacked in any way, shape, or form. A few airplanes go into a few buildings and all bets are off. And that's what really struck me as a kind of astonishing phenomenon. Because, as I was involved in churches that were very vocal about nuclear weapons during the Reagan administration, you may recall that. They were very vocal about Central America. As long as things were not immediately affecting Americans in, as long as it wasn't actual violence, it was potential violence, but not actual violence against Americans, the churches were quite vocal on these issues and prophetic, and and again, it doesn't matter whether you agree with it or not. It's just a striking phenomenon that they had a lot to say, and now they don't.
Laurent, Tripp.